Nurse Maya Johnson was new at the hospital. She was young, calm, and known for paying attention to the smallest details other people often ignored. Most of the staff simply followed the reports written by previous doctors, but Maya believed that every patient deserved a fresh look. One afternoon, she was assigned to assist during Sophia's routine checkup. Sophia was now 7 years old. She sat on the hospital bed, swinging her legs gently, humming a little tune to herself. Maya smiled warmly. "Hi, Sophia," she said softly. "I'm Nurse Maya." Sophia turned her head toward the voice and smiled back. As Maya checked the medical charts, she noticed something interesting. The diagnosis had always said the same thing: congenital blindness. But when she carefully read through older test results, something didn't quite make sense. According to several reports, Sophia's eyes themselves were perfectly healthy. Maya frowned slightly. That meant the problem might not be with the eyes at all. Curious, she decided to try a few simple tests. She slowly moved a bright pen light across Sophia's face. For a moment, nothing happened. Then something surprising occurred. Sophia's eyes moved slightly toward the light. Maya froze. She tried again. This time she moved the light from the left side to the right. Again, Sophia's eyes followed, very faintly but clearly. Maya's heart started beating faster. "General Harrison," she said carefully, "may I try something else?" The general looked confused but nodded. Maya picked up a colorful toy from the nearby table and held it a few inches away from Sophia. "Sophia," she said gently, "tell me if you notice anything, even just a tiny bit." Sophia stayed quiet for a moment. Then she tilted her head. I think I see something bright," the girl whispered. Emily gasped. General Harrison stepped forward immediately. "What did she say?" Sophia blinked a few times. "It's like a tiny glow." The room went completely silent. For years, every doctor had believed Sophia could see nothing at all. But Maya's simple test suggested something very different. Maya quickly called the hospital's neurological specialist team. Within hours, several doctors gathered in a conference room to study Sophia's previous scans and run new tests. The results shocked everyone. Later that evening, the lead doctor returned to the room where the general and Emily were waiting anxiously. He took a deep breath before speaking. "General Harrison, your daughter was never completely blind." Emily covered her mouth in disbelief. "What do you mean?" the general asked. The doctor explained carefully. "Sophia's eyes work perfectly, but the nerve signals between her eyes and brain are extremely weak. Her brain has been receiving very small visual signals since birth." Emily whispered, "So she can see?" "Not clearly," the doctor replied, "but with the right neurological treatment and therapy, there's a real chance her vision could improve." For the first time in years, hope filled the room. General Harrison turned toward Nurse Maya, who stood quietly near the door. The tough military leader, a man feared by enemies and respected by thousands of soldiers, walked over to her with emotion in his eyes. "You saw something every other doctor missed," he said. Maya smiled gently. "I just looked a little closer, sir." And in that moment, the life of a little girl named Sophia and the heart of a powerful general began to change forever. Maya Johnson was a young nurse who had recently started working at the hospital where Sophia received her regular checkups. Unlike many others, Maya had grown up in a small town where she learned to notice the smallest details. Her mother had been a teacher and always told her, sometimes the smallest clue can reveal the biggest truth. Maya carried that lesson with her everywhere. One afternoon, Sophia arrived at the hospital with her father, General Robert Harrison, for another routine appointment. The hospital staff immediately recognized the general. His presence always brought a sense of seriousness to the room. But Sophia, holding her father's hand, looked cheerful as always. While the doctors reviewed files and reports, Maya was asked to sit with Sophia in the waiting area. She pulled a chair closer and smiled warmly. "Hi, Sophia," Maya said gently. "Do you like stories?" Sophia's face lit up instantly. "Yes. My dad reads to me every night," she said happily. Maya glanced toward the tall military officer standing a few steps away. The general gave a small, proud smile. "What kind of stories do you like?" Maya asked. "Adventure stories," Sophia replied. "About brave heroes." Maya chuckled softly. That sounded exciting. As they continued talking, Maya began noticing something unusual. At first, it was so subtle that she almost ignored it. The lights in the waiting room flickered for a moment. Sophia's head turned slightly. Maya paused. Maybe it was just a coincidence. A few seconds later, sunlight bounced off a glass window across the room, creating a brief bright reflection. Once again, Sophia reacted. The little girl tilted her head slightly toward the light. Maya's eyes widened just a little. She didn't say anything, but her mind immediately began working. According to every medical report, Sophia had no visual response at all. None. Yet Maya had just seen the child react twice to changes in light. She decided to test something gently without making it obvious. Maya picked up a shiny metal pen from the nearby desk and slowly moved it so the light reflected from its surface. The reflection shifted across the wall. Sophia's eyes moved slightly. It was faint, almost impossible to notice. But Maya saw it. Her heart skipped a beat. That shouldn't be happening, she thought. Sophia was supposed to be completely blind. Still, Maya stayed calm. She didn't want to jump to conclusions. Children sometimes react to sounds or movement in ways that can be misunderstood. But the moment stayed in her mind long after the appointment ended. Later that day, when her shift became quieter, Maya went to the hospital records room. She searched for Sophia's medical file. It was enormous. Years of reports, tests, specialist opinions, and evaluations filled hundreds of pages. One by one, Maya carefully read through them. Every doctor had reached the same conclusion: congenital blindness. But as she kept reading, something began to bother her. The reports mostly focused on Sophia's eyes themselves. And strangely, every eye examination said the same thing. Her eyes were perfectly healthy. Maya leaned back in her chair, frowning. If the eyes were healthy, then where exactly was the problem? She continued flipping through the pages. Then suddenly, she stopped. One small note in an old report caught her attention. It was from a neurological test done shortly after Sophia's birth. Next to the result were two words written in small letters. Test inconclusive. Maya stared at the page. Her eyebrows slowly lifted. According to the file, the test had never been repeated. For years, every doctor had simply continued with the assumption that Sophia was completely blind. Maya's heart began beating faster. She looked down at the file again. "What if," she whispered quietly to herself, "everyone has been looking at the wrong problem?" The thought wouldn't leave her mind. If that early neurological test had been inconclusive, it meant there might still be something unexplored, something everyone had missed. Maya closed the file slowly. She knew one thing for certain. She couldn't ignore this. She had to tell someone. The hallway outside the testing room felt unusually quiet. General Robert Harrison stood with his arms crossed, his face serious and unreadable. Years in the military had taught him patience, but waiting for news about his daughter was harder than any battlefield. Emily sat beside him, nervously twisting her hands together. A few steps away, Nurse Maya Johnson stood near the wall. She tried to stay calm, but inside her heart was racing. What if I'm wrong? She wondered. She had spoken up in front of senior doctors and one of the most powerful military leaders in the country. If the test showed nothing, it would be embarrassing for her and frustrating for the family. Still, she couldn't ignore what she had seen. After several long hours, the door to the examination room finally opened. The head neurological specialist stepped out, holding a tablet filled with scan results. His expression looked shocked. I don't believe this," he said quietly. General Harrison stood up immediately. "What is it?" he asked firmly. The doctor looked first at Maya, then back at the general. "You were right," he said to her. Maya blinked in surprise. The doctor continued explaining. "Sophia's eyes are completely healthy, just like the earlier reports said. But the problem isn't with her eyes." Emily leaned forward anxiously. "Then where's the problem?" The doctor showed them the brain scan on his tablet. "It's here," he said, pointing to a highlighted area. the optic nerve pathway that carries signals from the eyes to the brain. General Harrison frowned slightly. Explain it in simple terms. The doctor nodded. Think of it like a cable connecting a camera to a computer. The camera works perfectly, but the cable is extremely weak. Because of that, the image barely reaches the computer. Emily slowly covered her mouth. You mean Sophia can see something? Yes, the doctor replied. Very faint signals have been reaching her brain since birth. They're extremely weak, which is why previous doctors believed she had no vision at all. Maya felt a wave of relief rush through her. She hadn't been wrong. The doctor continued. The reason we missed it earlier is because the neurological test done when Sophia was a newborn was inconclusive. Unfortunately, it was never repeated. General Harrison looked down at the floor for a moment, absorbing the information. Then he asked the most important question. Can it be treated? The doctor hesitated for a second before answering. There is no simple cure. However, medical technology has improved a lot over the past few years. He pointed again to the scan. With specialized neurological therapy and visual training, we may be able to strengthen the connection between Sophia's eyes and brain. Emily's eyes filled with tears. You mean she might actually see the world? The doctor nodded slowly. There is a real possibility. For a moment, no one spoke. The news felt almost unbelievable after so many years of hopeless answers. General Harrison finally turned toward Maya. The powerful general who commanded thousands of soldiers now looked deeply grateful. You saw something the rest of us missed, he said quietly. Maya shook her head modestly. I just paid attention, she replied. Emily walked over and gently held Maya's hands. Thank you, she said with emotion in her voice. Just then, the testing room door opened again. Sophia stepped out, holding a small toy the doctors had used during the tests. She looked around the hallway. Then she pointed slightly toward the bright window at the end of the corridor. There's that glow again, she said softly. Everyone in the hallway froze. For the first time in her life, Sophia wasn't just imagining the light. She was actually seeing it. The medical team gathered in a quiet conference room to explain the results in detail. General Harrison and Emily sat across the table, their faces filled with both fear and hope. For years, they had been told the same thing again and again, that Sophia would never see the world. Now, suddenly, everything seemed different. The lead doctor placed several brain scans on a large screen and took a deep breath. Sophia was never completely blind, he said. Emily gasped softly. What? The doctor nodded gently. Her eyes are perfectly healthy. The real problem is in the nerve signal between her eyes and her brain. General Harrison leaned forward, his brow tightening. What does that mean exactly? The doctor pointed to a highlighted line on the scan. This is the optic nerve pathway. It carries visual signals from the eyes to the brain. In Sophia's case, those signals have always been extremely weak. He paused before continuing. It means her brain has been receiving tiny amounts of visual information since birth, but not strong enough for her to clearly understand what she's seeing. Emily struggled to process the information. So all these years, she whispered, she wasn't completely blind? The doctor shook his head. No, her vision has been blocked by a rare neurological condition that doctors once believed caused total blindness. He turned to another image on the screen. But medical science has made major advances in recent years. Treatments have been developed that can help strengthen these nerve connections. The room grew silent. General Harrison finally asked the question that mattered most. Is there something we can do? The doctor nodded slowly. There is a procedure. It's designed to stimulate and strengthen the optic nerve pathway, helping the brain process visual signals more effectively. Emily's hands trembled slightly. Could she actually see? The doctor answered carefully. We can't promise perfect vision, but there is a real chance her sight could improve significantly. For a moment, no one spoke. After 8 years of believing nothing could be done, the possibility felt almost unreal. But hope had returned. 2 weeks later, the hospital prepared for Sophia's surgery. During those days, Nurse Maya Johnson stayed close to the little girl. She visited often, bringing small toys, telling stories, and explaining what would happen in simple, comforting words. Sophia trusted her completely. "Will it hurt?" Sophia asked one afternoon while sitting on her hospital bed. Maya smiled gently. "The doctors will make sure you're asleep during the procedure. When you wake up, they'll help your eyes and brain work together better." Sophia thought for a moment. "Do you think I'll see my dad?" Maya felt a small lump in her throat, but kept her voice calm. "I think there's a very good chance." Meanwhile, General Harrison often stood quietly in the hallway outside Sophia's room. He watched as Maya patiently talked with his daughter, encouraging her and easing her fears. One evening, after Sophia had fallen asleep, the general approached Maya. For a moment, the tall military leader simply stood there, unsure what to say. Finally, he spoke. "You never gave up on her," he said quietly. Maya looked at the sleeping child through the glass window. "I just noticed something small," she replied. The general shook his head slightly. "No," he said. "You noticed something everyone else missed." Maya smiled softly. "Sometimes the smallest signs tell the biggest truths." The general looked back at his daughter's room. For years, he had fought battles across the world, leading soldiers through impossible situations. But this moment felt different. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about war or strategy. He was thinking about something much simpler. The possibility that one day soon, his daughter might finally open her eyes and see the world for the very first time. The day of the surgery felt longer than any battlefield General Harrison had ever faced. The hospital waiting room was quiet, but the tension in the air was heavy. General Harrison sat upright in his chair, his hands clasped tightly together. Emily sat beside him, nervously wiping tears from her eyes every few minutes. Neither of them spoke much. Across the room, Nurse Maya Johnson waited as well. Though she tried to remain calm, she felt just as anxious as the family. She had been the one who noticed the small clue that started all of this. Now everything depended on the surgery. Hours passed slowly. The clock on the wall seemed to move at the slowest pace possible. Doctors and nurses walked in and out of nearby rooms, but every time the surgery door stayed closed. Finally, after what felt like forever, the doors opened. The surgeon stepped out, removing his mask. General Harrison stood up immediately. "Well?" he asked. The surgeon gave a tired but reassuring smile. "It went well," he said. Emily let out a shaky breath of relief. But the surgeon raised a hand gently. "The procedure was successful, but we won't know the full results yet. Sophia's brain needs time to adjust." The family understood. They had waited 8 years already. They could wait a little longer. 3 days later, the moment of truth arrived. Sophia sat on her hospital bed, while several doctors carefully prepared to remove the protective bandages from her eyes. The room was filled with quiet anticipation. General Harrison stood on one side of the bed, holding Emily's hand tightly. His strong military posture couldn't hide the nervousness in his face. Maya stood quietly near Sophia, offering the little girl a comforting smile. "Are you ready?" the doctor asked gently. Sophia nodded. The doctor slowly began removing the bandages. Layer by layer, the soft wrapping came away until only the final piece remained. The entire room fell silent. The doctor carefully lifted the last bandage away. "Sophia," he said softly, "open your eyes." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the little girl blinked slowly. The bright hospital lights made her squint. At first, her expression looked confused, as if her brain was trying to understand something completely new. Then suddenly, her eyes widened. She stared straight ahead. "Dad," she whispered. General Harrison froze. Sophia looked directly toward him. Her eyes focused on his face. I can see you." Emily burst into tears instantly. The general felt his knees give slightly as he rushed forward, kneeling beside the bed and gently hugging his daughter. For the first time in her life, Sophia was looking at her father. She studied his face carefully, his gray hair, his strong jaw, the warm smile he was trying to hold back through tears. Then Sophia giggled softly. "You look different than I imagined," she said. The room filled with laughter and emotional tears. Doctors wiped their eyes. Emily held her daughter's hand, overwhelmed with happiness. and Maya quietly stepped back, watching the beautiful moment she had helped make possible. A few days later, before Sophia was discharged from the hospital, General Harrison asked the entire hospital staff to gather in the main lobby. Doctors, nurses, and hospital workers filled the room. Sophia stood beside her parents, now able to look around and see the people surrounding her. The general stepped forward. In his hand was a small medal of honor, usually given for acts of service and dedication. He walked toward Maya. "This nurse did something no one else did," he said proudly. She paid attention. He gently placed the medal in Maya's hands. The room erupted in applause. Maya looked surprised and humbled at the same time. But everyone in the room understood the truth. Sometimes the greatest discoveries don't come from power, rank, or titles. Sometimes they come from someone willing to look a little closer. Someone who refuses to ignore the smallest sign of hope.